My aunt stole my inheritance and celebrated by buying the house I was supposed to inherit. I watched without argument and vanished completely. 10 years. That's how long I spent believing a lie while my real legacy collected dust in a forgotten safe. 10 years of accepting the scraps she threw my way. 10 years of hearing her say, "Your father didn't leave you much, Lena, but don't worry, I'll always take care of you." 10 years of holidays spent in her house, the one I played in as a girl, feeling like a guest instead of family. 10 years of being told that my father's failed business deals had left him nearly bankrupt. The day my father passed was a Tuesday in October. I was just a teenager, too young to understand the complexities of estates and wills. All I knew was the crushing weight of loss. My Aunt Carol, my father's younger sister, swooped in like a vulture disguised as a savior. She handled everything: the funeral, the paperwork, the consoling. She sat me down in that grand living room, the one with the fireplace I used to pretend was a dragon's lair, and told me the devastating news. "He left mostly debts, honey," she'd said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "But I've managed to salvage the house. It's in my name now, but you'll always have a home here." I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was family. For 2 decades, that lie was the foundation of my life. I finished school, got a dead-end job in the city, and lived in a cramped apartment that always smelled like my neighbor's cooking. Every Christmas and Thanksgiving, I'd make the pilgrimage back to my childhood home, now officially Aunt Carol's house. I'd watch her children, my cousins, run through the halls that should have been mine. I'd see her husband polish the classic car in the garage, my father's car, the one he promised to teach me to drive. Each visit was a fresh stab of a wound that never healed. She'd hand me a check for a few $100s on my birthday, a little something to help out, she'd call it, reinforcing the narrative that I was the charity case and she was the benevolent matriarch. I accepted it with a grateful nod, swallowing the bitter pill of my supposed misfortune. I never questioned it, never challenged it. I just accepted my lot, the daughter of a man who'd failed in business and left me with nothing but memories. At least that's what I thought. The truth came to light on a Saturday in June. It wasn't through a dramatic confrontation or a deathbed confession. It was a water pipe. Aunt Carol called me in a panic. A pipe had burst in the old study, my father's sanctuary, a room she'd kept locked and used for storage for 10 years. Water was everywhere, she wailed, and the restoration company needed to tear out the old built-in bookshelves. She needed me to come help sort through the junk before they threw it all out. I drove the 2 hours upstate, not out of any love for her, but out of a sense of duty to my father's memory. The study was a disaster. Soggy boxes of old files and mildewed books were piled high. As I was hauling a particularly heavy box of what looked like tax records from the 90s, the bottom gave out. A mess of damp paper cascaded onto the floor. And there, nestled among the ruined invoices, was a small, locked metal box, miraculously dry. It was my father's old document safe. "What's this?" Aunt Carol asked, her eyes narrowing. "Just some of Dad's old things," I said, my heart starting to pound. I recognized the box. He told me where he kept the key, taped to the underside of his old desk drawer. I feigned a moment of difficulty, pretending to struggle with a jammed drawer, and my fingers found the small, cold key exactly where he said it would be. The lock clicked open. Inside, pristine and untouched by the water, was a thick manila envelope. My name, Lena Brooks, was written on the front in my father's unmistakable handwriting. I expected old photos, maybe a sentimental letter. Instead, I pulled out a document. The last will and testament of John Brooks. "What's this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. My aunt snatched a copy from my hand. "That's an old draft," she said, her voice suddenly strained. "The final version is the one the lawyers have." But I was already reading. My father hadn't been bankrupt. Far from it. He had left everything to me. The house, a stock portfolio worth a small fortune even then, the classic car, and a life insurance policy with more zeros than I had ever seen in one place. The will was ironclad, witnessed and notarized. And there, named as the executor, the one meant to ensure his wishes were carried out, was my Aunt Carol. I stared at the paper, then at her. She wasn't faking sympathy anymore. There was pure, unadulterated panic in her eyes. "I already handled the estate," she stammered, her face turning pale. "It's all settled. This is meaningless." I looked back down at the date on the will. It was signed 1 week before his death. This wasn't a draft. This was the truth she thought she had buried under 20 years of lies. And I had just read it. The silence in that water-damaged room was deafening. The only sound was the hum of the dehumidifiers and the frantic thumping of my own heart. Aunt Carol was scrambling, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. "It was for the best, Lena," she pleaded, her voice cracking. "You were just a girl. You would have squandered it. I protected it for you, I invested it. I didn't say a word. I just folded the will, placed it back in the envelope, and tucked it into my jacket." The look on her face was a mixture of terror and fury. She had spent 2 decades living my life, enjoying my inheritance, all while painting me as a charity case. Her children's private school tuitions, their European vacations, the new wing she added to my house, it was all funded by my father's legacy. She hadn't protected anything, she had plundered everything. I walked out of that study, leaving her standing amidst the ruins of her lies and the soggy remnants of the past. I didn't need to yell or scream. The truth was a quieter, colder form of justice. The legal battle was swift. The will I found was undeniable, and the paper trail of her fraud was laughably easy for the forensic accountants to follow. She had systematically liquidated my father's stocks and funneled the money into her own accounts. The house had been transferred into her name using forged documents claiming the estate was insolvent. Her deception was as total as it was audacious. The court proceedings were a blur. My cousins, who I had once felt a strange mix of pity and envy for, couldn't look me in the eye. They were living in a house of cards built with stolen money, and the wind had finally changed. The final judgment came down on a crisp autumn afternoon, almost 11 years to the day my father passed. The court ordered her to return everything. The house, the current value of the stocks she stole, plus a decade of interest. It was a sum so staggering it effectively bankrupted her. She was forced to sell the house, my house, to even begin to pay the debt. She lost everything she had stolen and everything she had built upon that theft. I didn't attend the final hearing. There was no victory to celebrate, only a profound and quiet sense of restoration. A week later, my lawyer called. The house was officially mine, the title clear. The funds from the liquidated stocks were in a trust account under my name. I was, for the first time in my adult life, the girl my father had intended me to be. I drove back to the house one last time before the movers arrived. It was empty now, echoing with the ghosts of 2 decades of lies. I walked through the rooms, tracing the life I should have had. I stood in the study, now repaired and repainted, and looked out the window at the old oak tree my father had planted. There was no anger left, only a deep, hollow sadness for the years that were stolen. She hadn't just stolen money and property, she had stolen my youth, my confidence, my very identity. But as I stood there, I realized something. She thought she had buried the truth, but in the end, her own greed exposed it. Her secret, held so tightly for so long, had finally unraveled and destroyed her from the inside out. I didn't need to seek revenge. Justice had unfolded naturally, gracefully, like a forgotten letter finally being read. I locked the front door, the key feeling right in my hand for the first time, and I didn't look back. There was no emotion in it. If you made it this far, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I have carefully selected a story for you to watch next that I am sure you would like. Because here at English with Drama, every story proves one thing. Revenge is temporary, but redemption lasts forever.